Quiet. So if you, this is, by the way, just in case there's any confusion, this is a Holly Navarro Water System Board meeting. It is not a Hidden Creek Club meeting, so some people may have thought that. I just wanted to let you know. So it is just the Holly Navarro Water System. So we'll ask Director Miller to lead us in prayer.
Please bow your heads and pray with me. Lord, we thank you for this beautiful day you've given us. We thank you for the blessings you give us today and every day. We ask you to watch over our meeting tonight and guide our hearts and minds to make decisions that are in the best interest of Holly Navarro Water System, its members, and its employees. We ask you to watch over and protect all of our military men and women who serve to protect us every day, all of our law enforcement, first responders, healthcare workers that keep us safe and protect us as well. We ask these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Director Thiel, Pledge of Allegiance.
Ladies and gentlemen, please place the flag and repeat it. Recite with me the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we have a quorum. For everyone, the audio and video recorders are in use. A reminder that our November meeting will also be held here because we're having renovations at the boardroom at the water system. If you would like to address the board, there is a sign-up sheet that's back there on the table there. Please sign up and we'll call you forward. First item of business is the approval of minutes and transcripts. We had the September 21st, 2021 regular meeting minutes, the August 17th, 2021 transcripts, and the September 21st, 2021 transcripts. Has anyone had a chance to review them?
I'm going to, just got one thing. Mark already identified it where his words and my words got combobbled.
Okay.
And Dallas, you were working on that? Yes. Yeah. It was just, I said it, not Mark.
That's why I'd like to make a motion that we approve the September meeting minutes as well as the August and September transcripts with the correction that I suggested in an email.
Okay. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second that.
I have another correction.
Okay.
To the September 21st minute transcripts, page 12, line 21, should be Lackland instead of Lakeland. Lackland is the Air Force Base where AFC is, not Lakeland, Florida.
Okay. So does that motion stand with those changes as well?
Right. I revised the motion to include the changes that Director Thiel suggested.
Okay. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Approval of memberships. In September, we had 334 new memberships, 332 canceled members, and 1 transfer. Do I have a motion to approve the memberships as presented? Motion to approve. Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Those in, any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
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 Those opposed say no. Motion carries. New business, finance. Mr. Peavy.
Yes, sir, Mr. President and Board. You have in your package the review of the September 2021 financials. I would say that I know that we're going to get into the subcommittees and they will report, but it was a quiet month. It was a conservative month, both with revenues and expenditures. You can see there was a slight upturn in profits. So with that, I would ask the board for their consideration for approval.
Thank you, sir. So Director Thiel and I meet monthly to go over the O&M budget. So a quick summary for the board and everyone. So September was basically, like Dr. Peavy said, it's a conservative month, nothing drastic to report. The revenue from the water and wastewater sales were up a little more than about 2%. The impact fee revenue was down 9%, which is related to the building in the area, and we can't control that. Overall, total revenue was slightly up for the month of less than 1%, and expenses were controlled down and under budget by 2% for the month. So overall, the company had a positive operating income of $55,124.90. So basically a solid month. Director Thiel, you have anything to add?
No, I do not. And, Mr. President, I make a motion that we approve the financials.
Can you have any volume turned up on anything?
Yes, sir. Is that better, sir? Okay. Okay, you're making a
I make a motion
motion.
we approve the financials, monthly financials for September as submitted.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Motion carries. Finance Committee updates. Director Thiel.
The 4 subcommittees can give me their reports now if they have anything. Director Campbell on Eglin Ribs.
Yes, we had a meeting with Jacobs. It's on track. Our easements are on track. The only thing holding us up right now is the signing of the lease, but that's the responsibility of the county. We met with Commissioner Peach, and he's trying to push that forward. We know where it's at. I know where it's at. It's just the county giving the Air Force the permission to sign it, and we're off to go. But according to our engineers, we're on track. We've got some time for them to work through their bureaucracy before it impacts us.
Okay. Director Campbell, anything on the capital
Nope,
improvements?
it's on track. The RFP for all the capital improvements has gone out. They're in the process of relocating the lift station on 87, Mr. Clinton has told us, so all proceeding as the plan.
Okay. Director Miller, anything on bonds?
No, we're seeking some financing, in the open financial market, and rates are low enough right now that bonds aren't really a strong consideration, so we're going to just continue to pursue traditional financing and put bonds on hold, so there's nothing to report right now.
Okay. President Kennedy, anything on the budget that's not already covered?
No, sir.
Okay, that concludes it. I don't have anything either. That includes the 4 subcommittee reports and the finance reports.
Thank you. Does the board have any questions on the committee reports? Okay. Next agenda item is the Commissioner Peach October meeting. Dr. Peavy?
Mr. President and Board, there was several items that we had discussion on October the 7th with Commissioner Peach. Those, as you just heard, was on the Eglin project and the status of the lease. So we discussed that. The other item and project that we were discussing with the county was septic to sewer projects that we would like to perform because we were looking to the county for assistance as well as financial grants that were available for monies that came from the state. That was very positive. The other was that we talked about the Edgewood sidewalks and that area that the county is going to produce and put in and install, and how the coordination between our group and their group would work to be mutually beneficial to both. And that was the extent of our discussions per se.
Okay. All right. Any questions or from the board on the meeting? Very good. Thank you, sir. Engineering, Mr. Phillips.
Oh, that was quick. I don't know that I have anything to add to what Joe said on the capital improvements, except that Will handed me the easement instruments when he walked in, subject to our careful review of those things. I don't know that I have anything to add, unless there's any questions.
No, sir. Board have any questions on engineering today?
Just like to point out, and I know the reason why, but I&I was as high as it's been all year, and that's due to the rainfall, I assume, and there's nothing much we can do about that.
It is an infiltration problem right now, as opposed to the normal inflow problem that we have. The groundwater is so high that we're just getting that infiltration through every opening in the system.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Final agenda item, VT Scada update. Mr. Wells.
The VT Scada transition is on schedule. As y'all may recall from last month, we're doing the Fairpoint system first, and there was one little hiccup. They monitored a couple days, worked out the problem, but it's back on schedule. And once it's completed, Holly Navarre will begin its transition to VT Scada. So it looks like mid-November we will be starting the Holly Navarre. By late December we should be operating on VT Scada portions of Holly Navarre, not the total Holly Navarre plants, wells, lift stations. But the transition will continue right on through the year till we get it all transferred over to VT Scada.
Very good. Any questions from the board on VTC? All right, thank you. All right, that'll move us on to member forum. So,
Can we ask questions of the engineer while he's still here?
no, sir, you could ask the questions of us during the open forum, though, and we'll see if we can, if you have any specific questions especially, then they could be addressed to the CEO. Miss Kennedy, nope, okay, all right. Pete, I'm sorry, so Pete, yes, sir.
There. Two quick questions. One, as far as the Eglin ribs, it seems it's progressing. Is there an end date out there?
Yep, April 2023.
3, okay. And the second
Construction should
question
start
is,
in the new year, Pete.
when and where is the Hidden Creek Club meeting?
Sir?
When and where is Hidden Creek Club meeting to address Hidden Creek Club concerns?
Well, they usually put out a club meeting notice when that is. Yeah. They just recently had one, I think, 2 weeks ago?
Okay, so.
Yes, sir. Right now, they're not on a scheduled basis that I'm aware of.
The Club at Hidden Creek doesn't have public meetings.
Right.
So
No,
what,
but I'm talking about if I have concerns with the water board owning the club.
Then, so your concerns, if you have any, is it, first and foremost, the easiest would be to be able to send your concerns to the CEO at Holly Navarre Water System.
Okay.
And that would be the best way. Go ahead and lay out your
And
concerns.
his email address is on the website or something?
Well, and on the website, you can send, on the website itself, you can send the email from there, the comments from the website, which will go
Okay.
directly to the CEO.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Vince, is it Cawley?
Yeah.
Well done this weekend, sir.
Thank you. This is my first meeting, so please excuse me if I'm asking a redundant question. I know a little bit about water treatment plants. I lived up very close to Blue Plains and another water treatment plant right up the street from where I lived in Maryland, in Accokeek, Maryland. Blue Plains, I don't know if you're familiar with that, for Washington, D.C. That's a state-of-the-art, most modern water treatment plant facility in the world. People come from all over the world for years and years and years to look at that plant and to study it. In any case, is there anything that you've looked into your capital improvements on upgrading your water treatment facility so you don't have to ship water up to Eglin and you don't have to use these spray fields? And you could discharge out into the Sound or into East Bay? Has the engineering looked at that, or is it, anybody done any financing on that?
Well, go ahead.
I'll answer about the bay. That the county is being told by the environmental people that they have to stop putting their effluent in the bay. So Ed, that's one. And for years, they've looked at, the water system has looked at other areas for spray fields, and there is none, which is why the Eglin Ribs is really the only option we've had.
Well, I think, hold on for just a second. The EPA is not letting them, well, they're not letting them because.
Part of the regional.
Let me finish, Joe. Let me finish for a second. You finish the question so I can qualify a little bit better. If they're not letting you discharge, Navarre Beach is discharging. Now, I don't know, I haven't seen the biology or anything else on that. I'd like to see it. I don't know if it's published or not. But I'm asking a direct question. Have you looked at capital improvements so you could upgrade your facility? And you don't have to worry. Then you won't have to worry. The EPA will qualify you to discharge into they're discharging over here now. Now, maybe they're forcing them to go up to Eglin. But don't you think that all the money and the service and everything else you're going to have to do with a pipeline all the way up to Eglin?
Vince, I'll just cut to the chase for this. Eglin is our only option, and the bottom line is the EPA will not let, the whole Florida is going to go with discharging into a body of water. So you have to
say they're going to outlaw discharging into everybody?
Part of the Eglin Ribs, the regional reuse, is that the beach is going to ship to us, and everything's going to Eglin. So it's not a capacity of the wastewater treatment plant at
Yes,
this
sir.
point.
I haven't seen anything on the state. Is this federal or Florida EPA? that's done?
I'm not sure. I mean,
Is that a
again,
bill, is that a bill that's already been passed in the legislature?
I think it's actually DEP, Florida DEP.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, Vince, over the years, I've asked that same question.
You have,
And
okay.
there are two other alternatives other than shipping it up to Eglin that, you know, I've discussed with our system engineers, our CEOs at the time. One is reverse osmosis. That's where the water's treated to a level where it's drinkable when you're done with it, and you can, you know, completely reuse it. They do it in some cities in Florida, whereas especially, you know, reverse osmosis.
They do it on the cruise ships.
That's the state of the art. It's also extremely expensive to put in a system of that kind, and the cost to our members would be exorbitant as far as the rates you'd pay for water and for sewer treatment. So while it's available, it's not our most cost-effective measure. The second one is one that we can't do anything to correct the past, but years ago, the system probably should have been doing more to expand our reuse, the way Gulf Breeze has, and put reuse lines into subdivisions. And there was actually a requirement for that to happen where it wasn't being enforced. And so the infrastructure's not in place at this time to put in the residential reuse and irrigation lines. You know, I made the suggestion to Navarre Beach many years ago that rather than pump their effluent into the Sound, they should do reuse over on the beach. I mean, you look at Pensacola Beach, it's got, you know, grass and trees and bushes, and how much prettier it is than, you know, sand lots that you have on Navarre Beach, and that's because there's no reuse over there. So, you know, I made that suggestion. They could have really nice parks and all that with that, but then again, it's the cost to put in that infrastructure. Who's going to pay for it? You know, what's the ultimate benefit from it? It's just a cost-benefit analysis. Right now, Eglin is our most cost-efficient way of doing that, and it will solve our effluent disposal probably the next 50 years at least. It's the foreseeable future
You're still
for
going to be
us.
spraying on the golf course, though.
We still will be, yeah.
yes, this will still be primary.
But we will not be required to spray. Like if we have heavy
Yeah.
rain events, we could divert water to
And I had
Eglin as opposed
I
to.
had 4 inches of rain come in my house on Second Court, and that water rolled off that golf course. Of course, it's been raining and raining and raining, but the affluent going on there, it was like a tidal wave. It came over from Cypress Point, and it came right down, right off the summit there. I don't know what hole that is.
Yeah.
Well, it's runoff from the rain. The water table is as high as it's going to get, so the ground is
Yeah, I know,
completely
this couldn't
saturated.
take
But
it
we
long.
didn't have any option but to continue spraying.
Let me ask one other question. I hate to take up too much time here, but up where we lived in Maryland, they had a very similar problem that you have down here. A lot of low-lying areas and a lot of homes on water. Septic systems leaching into the water table and into the water. Algae problems, which they're suffering in other places all over, really, but especially down in South Florida now. The EPA came in these low-lying areas and forced the homeowners and the water companies to upgrade, and they took everybody off. They had to go on sewer.
And just to let you know, as Dr. Peavy had mentioned, he had a good meeting with Commissioner Peach to be able to go and actually start looking at doing some septic to sewer conversions and see if we can get grant money. So it's something that's on his radar as well.
Is the EPA after you?
No, sir, it's not. It's just
Okay.
something that we feel that would be probably good, beneficial for the community, so.
Okay.
Thank you,
very
sir.
much.
Yes, sir. Mr. Evans. Is it his
First of
birthday?
all, I'd like to know if there's anything that you can do to lower the water in the back of my property and the next 3 properties to the right of me. It is up in past my palm trees. It's all in my landscaping on my yard. And another thing, while you're thinking about that, there's a sprinkler system that you have right behind, a sprinkler head, right behind the 9th tee box. It comes on, it sprays right directly into my yard and turns and sprays it right back into the bay, or the pond, as you all want to call it. So I don't want to know if you can do anything about either one of those.
The pond level goes down from the spraying, so we have to spray the whole golf course to reduce the pond.
But can you spray it on the golf course and not back into the pond?
And if you definitely have that problem, and you've seen that, I would ask you to
I've got it
report
on
that.
video about 10 different
Perfect.
times.
Yes, sir. If you'll either now that you've mentioned it, I'm sure someone here has also heard it, but if you will tell the general manager here, an email, or in this case,
Who's the general manager?
Miss Emlett, Miss Sandra Emlett.
Well, we've called her several times and no return calls.
Okay. But yes, sir. So if you don't mind, that'll be a good proper, instead of you worrying so much about at least if we have a paper trail, as far as like an email trail, those kinds of things, so to let her know as well.
We've had the environmental people out 3 different times.
Yes, sir, we're aware.
We've had the health department one time.
Yes, sir, we're aware.
We've had Mr. Peach, the county commissioner,
Yes, sir.
are all saying they're going to take care of it. They're going to do the best. They give me different emails and stuff that I can contact in Tallahassee. Everyone I contact said, oh, we have no control over that. You'll just have to get with your local board. Well, here we are with the local board.
I understand, and we sympathize, and you know, you're my neighbor, so
Yeah.
I really.
But you need to see the stuff in my backyard.
really
I mean, it looks
sympathize.
like raw sewage. I mean, it smells some days like somebody just,
Yes, we understand. And again, like you said, the DEP, you know, they've taken a look. We're working within all the parameters of our permitted, you know, what we're permitted for. The water, you know, by the grace of the good Lord, it'll go down from the water table when the water table goes down. And sadly, as everybody knows, when the soil just gets too saturated, it starts going laterally. It won't go vertically.
I know we've had a lot of rain.
Yes, sir.
And I know my property reaches 44 feet out into the pond more than what it is now. And so does my neighbor and the neighbor and the neighbor. And I'll give you the plats. I gave the plats to the county commissioners. I gave the county. So
Yes, sir.
my palm trees have been in the water since way before April.
I promise you, staff is doing the best they can to try to lower the water every day that they can. And
Well, at
and
least-
it didn't help to get it looked like we got 18 inches of rain in 2 days, so.
And it hadn't
will
rained in
continue
about
to-
7 days, 8 days now, and that water hadn't gone down much at all.
I understand, sir.
But anyhow, if you will, at least get a hold of that sprinkler head and get it directed another direction. And if you've got any other sprinkler heads that are shooting it right back into the pond, you're defeating its purpose.
Understood.
Those
Thank you.
sprinkler heads can be turned on and turned off individually, so we'll get
Do
with
what,
the
sir?
maintenance guy. The sprinkler heads can be adjusted
Yes.
individually, so we should be able to take care of that number
I
9.
appreciate it. That's right behind the ninth tee box.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Bob. Okay. Joe Blevins?
My name is Joe Blevins. My resident address is 2795 Pebble Beach Drive. More specifically, I'm located right at the green for Fairway and 16. There is an issue there with water. I understand there's an issue at Fairway on number 8. I think the golf course opened up today, the front 9, and they're supposed to open up, I guess, Thursday for the back 9. They're going to change, from what I heard, I'm not a golfer, but from what I've heard, they're going to change those. They're both par 4s. They're going to change them to par 3. I guess move the tee box close to the green. There is a, and I'm not going to belabor this, it's about the drainage issue that we've had on rain like the 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th. When the low was just hanging here around our area, it wasn't moving, and that dumped all the rain. It wasn't that much intensity, I don't believe, but it was, the low just stayed here, and all the rain for those 4 days was saturated the ground and created a problem for us.
Yes, sir.
My house, 2 houses east of me, flooded. If you saw the article in the Navarre Press last week, the picture that was taken was my house and the 2 houses adjoining or next door to the east. I sent off a certified letter to the Holly by the Sea Home Improvement Association general manager, and I sent a copy to the water board, sent a copy to the Santa Rosa County Engineering Department and the Department of Environmental Protection District Northwest in Pensacola. I don't know if you've seen that letter. It's a one-page letter spelling out the problem for the storm inadequate, I think, in my opinion, design of the original street. There's two problems. The drainage along the street, which is a county highway road department issue. The ditches are not cleared. Some drives have pipes, some don't. But the water on the south side of the beach, Pebble Beach, comes from the east, I believe, going to the west. I have talked with Jimmy White, the road and bridge, I think, assistant engineer, and he came and looked at the problem, called me, and I didn't talk with him when he was there, but he called and said that when weather permits and the conditions permit, he would get out and take some check elevations to see what they could do with the ditch drainage. But the water in the back side adjoining the golf course is, there's a swell, not a swell, there's a retention area right in the back of my house. I don't think it was intended or designed to be a retention area. I think they use that for a borrow area to build Green 9. It's high, Green 16, it's high. But that is filled up, and it's held water in the past, but it is now filled and overflowing the cart path. The two houses, I do not have a pool or a deck. The adjoining house does not have a pool or deck, but the third house had a pool and a deck, and it flooded that entirely and flooded those two houses. My house did not get flooded. But the whole issue of my question, or my making over the problem, is storm drainage. It's not, I don't have any issues with I've seen the sprinklers. I don't think the flooding in the area had anything to do with your sprinkler system or your affluent runoff.
Thank you, sir.
I think it was all due to storm issues.
Yeah.
And the unusual low that we had that stayed around so long and dumped so much water. So hopefully this county can do something with the water in the ditches out front. And I don't know what can be done with the water in the back. I really don't, unless it just... The county engineer who came down said that, and he walked back and looked at the back, and he said in his opinion, he thinks the pond just overflowed, but that wasn't intended to be a retention pond.
No, sir. It's just,
Okay, thank you for listening.
thank you for your input. Thank you, sir. All right. That's all that we have that's signed up. Yes, sir?
May I respond, sir?
Do you have an input for the? Yes, please, go right ahead. Name and address?
My name is Andrew Martell. I live at 7025 Pro-Am Court. On October the 6th, I met with Mr. Peavy, and just to fill you in briefly here, I responded to the flooding in my backyard that came from the sand trap into my yard. When I say into my yard, I mean right into my screened-in lanai, up against my house, 4 inches high, and 4 inches high on my neighbor's house. That water comes streaming down through there like a current. My neighbor and I were kidding that we could kayak down through there, and you really could have done that. There was a foot and a half of water in the middle between the two houses flowing. Dr. Peavy, the meeting with Dr. Peavy, he furnished me a copy of the sand trap, and which is quite large. That's the largest sand trap I've ever seen in my golfing days. And I have concluded that is not only a sand trap, that is also a water retention pond. In time, when the lightning strikes and the thunder roars, it turns into a water retention device. when the sky is clear and nice, it's a sand trap for the golfers. So it does two things. I sit there every day looking out across this fairway out here, the 18th fairway, every day, and I see the angle that the fairway is at. It's about a 10-degree angle right to my property, the property's next to me, and into that, and water flows off of that into the sand trap water retention pond. The normal rainfall without that sand trap there, I would have fared just as well as most other people in my community. Yeah, they'd have had little puddles here and there in their driveways, et cetera, et cetera. But I had water come right up to the door of my garage. If it had rained another inch or so, it would have went inside there. Like I say, it was 4 inches up. I had talked with several people, and they instructed me that I should coordinate with the county and have them come out and take a look at the sand trap and my property and the sand trap. And here's the way it goes. The sand trap's out in front, and the property, the edge of the sand trap on my side goes like this. Goes right on down, water came right in through there. Clearly, that is unacceptable. That edge of the sand trap water retention pond will flood every time there's a storm equivalent to the one we just had. Understanding with this is 1 in 15, 20 years, whatever, I kind of think it's going to be more frequent from now on. That's my opinion. I'm not a weatherman and so on and so forth. Understanding all of that, I just paid $650 for the replacement of my motor on my pump to my pool as a result of flooding water on my property alongside my house. Like I said, 4 inches of water, electrical, it was on. I didn't know it on the night of the 6th, morning of the 6th, the flooding was going on, and my motor cut on and died right there. So I've got a loss, and I don't know which way to go. I bought a property there 2 years ago, hadn't realized it. I asked a lot of people, when was the last time we had flooding here? Oh, we've never had flooding here and everything. 2 years later, here I am, standing in front of you, talking about flooding coming from the golf course. That's where it come from. It came from the golf course. It did fall down on my property, but that runoff off of the fairway here, it was like a waterfall coming into that sand trap water retention pond and flooded my property and knocked out the pump motor.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes.
Up here?
Oh.
Over here.
Could you hold?
No, over here, sir.
You're hearing the speaker behind you.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Where does the water go once it leaves your property?
On Pro-Am, once it left my property, it receded back to the sand trap retention pond because it was slowly going down, and right now it's about halfway full. It also, when the water was falling, when the rain was coming down and we were in a progressive flood condition, meaning it was flooding, it was flowing from the sand trap onto my property, between the houses, and down the street of Pro-Am. I believe there's people here in here tonight that can testify where that water flowed through there, and I mean flowed. Like I say, my neighbor and I were kidding about Andy and Gary's rapids, as we called it, between our houses.
My point in mentioning that is that everywhere in town, if you drove all around town, there was standing water in places.
Yeah,
And
this was not standing water,
There's nothing
sir.
you can do when you have that amount of water and the water table is saturated. I mean, it wasn't just the one rain event. It was a rain event over several days, and the ground was saturated, and there was just nowhere for it to go. So I think it's public knowledge that the overall stormwater plan for our area can use some improvement. You've got to be able to move the water, and you've got drainage ditches that have 12-foot trees in them that are blocked up where the water can't flow. And so my point would be not that the water is, coming onto your property, it's that it's not running off of your property.
Yes, it did.
Yeah, so,
Yeah, it ran off my property.
but it's not running off quick enough
It ran
to-
off my property and went on these people's properties that are here.
But it's not running off.
All right,
yeah.
so, yeah.
Yeah,
and-
the
and one of
drainage.
things is, yeah,
Yeah.
you'd have
So-
to see his
so
property.
it's, we can't control the amount of water that comes on the golf course and goes off, when you have that much rain. But the solution is going to be I think, to deal with the county, and I know the county is forming a stormwater task force, of citizens to try to address some of these problems. I would say the solution is going to be improve the flow of the water so that it's not collecting in areas and causing people's properties to retain water.
But once the water arrived on my property, it had no problem flowing out into the street, and it flowed into the street. I know where the water came from, because I had 1 million fish on my property and in that pond. The only place that I know where there's fish is right over here. That overflowed, that went on down, and right into that sand trap, and onto my property, and right down the street. Raise your hand if you had fish in your yard. There you go. That came from right
Got it.
between my house.
Yeah.
See? And that, sir, does not have anything to do with building a water drainage system in the neighborhoods here. That originated, if you go back, all the way back to the grassroots sources, it came from here. There are no other ponds around here that have little fish in it. That water came from here to my yard and right on down the street. The street was covered and there. What do you folks plan to do to prevent that from happening to us in the community next to you?
Well, and again, ultimately, right over here, you've spoken with Dr. Peavy?
Yes, I did.
Yes. So, at the end of the day, your questions when you want to have a direct response to something so for example, Director Miller doesn't know maybe where you're even talking about.
No, I don't. I don't know. That's why I
right.
asked the question. What's the lay of the
So
land?
your first step again is to coordinate with Dr. Peavy, with the CEO, and from there, we'll provide a response back on that.
Well, I did, and I will say that Dr. Peavy did answer all my questions. He furnished me information. He responded in a very kind and concerned manner. I will say that, for sure.
Great.
I've never met Dr. Peavy before. I know nothing of him. I've never met the water board before, but I do have water with fish in it throughout, smelling like you know what.
I do.
And I'm concerned that the next flood is going to happen again. This sand trap right here has a groove cut in it now, so the water will come out of the sand trap, water retention pond, at the next, a lot easier than it did before, because of the way it was designed and built, you see.
Got it.
And it is not. It may have been designed and built years ago, but today it isn't. Water, every time it rained, water has come up. That's my first
Right.
question, and I just wanted you to have that information. But I have one other question, please.
Okay, if you don't mind. Yeah.
And that question, sir, is to you, President Kennedy.
Sure.
I attended the Holly by the Sea Association's meeting the other day, and you were the president there.
Sure.
As well as you are the president here.
Yes, sir.
My question to you, sir, is how do you plan to support the people in the association that have a water problem, like myself and many other people, and at the same time, you're the president on the water board. There are conflicting challenges here for you to work one way or the other. How do you plan to do that effectively?
Well, you and I can talk about that offline if you want, because this is about the water system, and I'll be happy to talk to you
Well,
about
sir,
that.
you're managing a water system, and
Yeah.
I certainly can't see, I have a hard time when you're stepping in both areas. My
But I get your-
question to you, sir,
I get your point.
is being asked and discussed out here by the hour out here with people out here.
Understood, yeah. And again, you and I can discuss that, but we're looking for your input for the board, and so thank you for your input.
Okay. Well, thank you.
And if you will, just stay back and we'll chat. Okay,
Thank you.
all right. Being that there's no further,
Mr. President.
yes, ma'am.
Yes, I'm sorry, they had already taken the sheet.
Yeah, we stole it from you.
I just wanted real quick, so I made some photos, because I
Okay.
figured giving you a visual of what I'm speaking about will be better. So when you look at this, I want you guys to see the flow from the lake, how it encroaches all the way to Cove. This is not a county issue, it's a golf course issue. So that's the first picture. This will show you all of the south properties on that lake were bombarded because the wall, it basically breached the banks.
Okay.
That's a visual from the neighbor's backyard. This is a visual from the other neighbor that is out of town, and it was within inches of their house, and we walked over to check on it. So that way you have visuals of what I came to talk about.
Okay. Name and address, please.
Jody Van Wagner, 7100 Classic Court.
Okay.
So I really just came because, one, I had reached out to the water department, to a couple of board members, because I didn't know who all was on the board. I knew Mark was, I knew James was, so I sent a Facebook message about my concern, and, they were nice to respond. And I appreciate Mark, he was like he said, I reached out to the board, I notified them. What frustrates me is, like me and it sounds a lot of homeowners, is reaching out and it was complete dead silence. Basically, everyone ran under a rock or something, or didn't want to address it, didn't know how to respond to it, didn't want to deal with it. I don't know. But I even called the general manager, like someone else in here had said they'd called multiple times. No return phone call. So I don't know what that's about. I think in that kind of profession that you should at least respect a voicemail or someone leaving a message and call back and see what the problem is. But with that said, my only question is, what is the solution that you guys are coming up with? What is the discussion you are having around your table that's fixing the problems, because the lakes have breached their banks? And like right now, we've lived there 11 and a half years. We were here during the 100-year flood. We got nowhere near that kind of water. And the people on Cove, everybody thinks it's a drainage issue. All of that water on Cove, between Reef and coming down towards Second or whatever it was, all of that water came from the lake. It was literally a little stream going in front of our house, and our house was like a moat because it came on both sides. So the neighbor behind us, it came all the way through their yard, up to their deck, all the way down their front yard, all the way down my backyard, the front yard on my side, the neighbor's yard. I mean, you can see from the pictures how that water came about. If the sprinklers are what reduces the water level in the lakes, then we need to figure out a way to run those, one where they're not going on other people's property, but we need to consistently run those, because even right now, the lake, if you look at that one, it's probably still 3 to 4 feet higher than what it is on average. So it's still very high, and I haven't even seen the sprinklers hardly run, when usually we would see them on a consistent basis out there, like I think it's hole 7. I don't golf, so I think that's hole 7. But, I'm not even seeing them consistently run. So I get my question to the board and to the CEO is, what is your solution? What are you guys talking behind the scenes as far as what your plan of action is to fix the problem? Because at the end of the day, we can always say it's the drainage, it's the county. I'm sorry, but it has nothing to do with drainage in county. This is literally the golf course and the lake overflow.
I'll take some of that, Mike. So you asked what we are doing. So if you notice, we actually had the course, the golf course, which is actually the spray field for Holly Navarre, right? It's the spray field with a golf course on it. We closed it for 10 days and sprayed the heck out of everything that was on the other side of the course, which is probably, Jody, why you didn't see it. 24 hours a day, sometimes up to 1.7, 1.8, almost 2 million gallons a day. So we're permitted 1.1 average, right? So when we put 1.6, but in that same time frame you're talking about, God gave us 50 million gallons. That's why the water table's so high. I've got fish in my yard too, I'm telling you, right down from the lake off of Brinkley. So we had Hurricane Sally, we had Tropical Storm Anna, we had Tropical Storm Fred, then we had Hurricane Ida, all dumping, and we just haven't recovered. The water table is killing us. We would love to have this course open and those lakes down to where they are at the 24-foot level, but they're not, and it's water table. 16, we actually looked at, a brilliant idea I had, bring one of those septic sucker pumps and take it out like you would your home septic, right? You're on septic? It doesn't matter. The water table is just going to put the water back, whatever you take. You could take it out of there for a year. So we're really looking at the water table. Our engineers tell us water table goes down about a ½ inch a day. So if you're up a foot, do the math.
No, it's more than a foot.
Right.
It's a couple.
I'm just saying if it's a foot, right? Because I think the house there you're talking about is actually at the 26-foot level for the topography.
And I think to
We've looked at
Joe's-
all of these. So
Yeah.
that's what we're doing. Other than that, we're still spraying. We're still spraying. Just because you don't see it over on this side because of the ponds, we're trying to take that. That's why the range is still closed. Because if you didn't see it when you came in, that's where we're spraying the affluent. So until people stop flushing the toilets and taking showers, where all that affluent goes, we're stuck with it.
Well, I mean, I saw golfers out there yesterday or this morning.
You're right, it is now, but we're still
At the
spraying.
end of the day, with the homeowners that live there and our properties, if we're trying to get water levels down, let's close it off, let's spray the crap out of it, and then reopen it.
And we are still open it.
So to let you, and to point out what Joe was saying, again, that was maybe the layman's terms of how much the water may or may not go down based on the water table. The water table itself is the main culprit of how fast water will go down, period, for those, because of, no matter how much we spray, the water table is where we get the most reduction. But you're asking for a plan or whatever. The thing that I can tell you, though, is staff is doing everything they can to be able to spray where they can, spray where they're not flooding. Mr. Evans will take a look at that hole number 9 spraying. But they're doing everything they can. But right now, as Joe had mentioned, we just got hammered with more rain that I've only been here 6 years, but this seems to be the most rain we've ever had in quite a short time when we've already had 2 wet months ahead of that. So,
Can I point out one thing? I didn't know this information when you and I spoke on the phone, Jody, but actually found out that we, on average, pump into the ponds 1.1 million gallons a day. Somewhere between 1.7 and a little over 2 million is how much we pump out of the ponds. So we're pumping more water out of the ponds than we're pumping into them. Now, all that said, you know, when we have a rain event like this and the ponds overflow, you know, I think we do. Do you want to come to the podium or once I'm done speaking? Okay.
no.
Anyway, we do have a long-term plan to try to mitigate, you know, any of the water levels in our ponds. The long-term plan is, once the Eglin ribs are open, we could actually shut off the flow into the ponds and send it all up to Eglin during a heavy rain event. We're not going to do it.
What kind of timeline is that? How many years out is that?
It's 2023 is the project timeline on that. So it's in the works. We're waiting on Air Force leases and easements and things. It just takes time. But we've been working on that project. The planning for it started 20 years ago. So we're at a point where there's an end in sight to that. But, that's the only other solution. When, we have water from the treatment plant that we have to get rid of, we have to get rid of it. There's nowhere else for it to go. And so we do have a long-term plan to correct it. I still think once water goes on to someone's property, there needs to be a stormwater plan to move it off of that property and out into the rivers and streams. So, we can't control that.
Well, there's the
But we're
the
pumping, my
stream
point is, we're pumping more water out of the ponds than we're pumping into them. It's the rainfall, it's the 50 million gallons of rainfall that we have no control over.
Are you able to run the water anywhere but as far as the lakes go, can it go into a stream or
No,
anything
ma'am.
like that? Or is
No,
it
ma'am.
something about because what it is, it can't?
That's correct.
Yeah,
We're
we can't,
permitted
we can
to
only spray it, yeah. That's
It
all we
cannot
can
go
do.
in a body of water.
Right.
So, and again, for
So like
what-
if it comes up on our property and we're wading around in it, trying to move stuff around and we're knee deep in it, that's really a health hazard to us.
No, ma'am.
It's treated water.
It's just it's a level below drinking water. Yes, ma'am. Again, so to help with, not to help, but to just as on the answer, or not even an answer, Eglin is going to be a tool that we'll have in our arsenal to be able to handle this situation. Staff is working, moving, shifting, spraying where they can, and they're doing everything they can. We don't want to be here with these ponds, no sir, and we're doing everything they can. So
I do want to address the fact that no one has responded to her voicemail and other members' voicemail. I'm just disappointed that, I included our CEO, her information, her contact phone number. She left voicemails and nobody responded to her. I know everybody was busy, but, I think we have to have better customer service than that to our members. That's my opinion on that.
And I will say responses go a long way.
Sure.
It shows a sign of professionalism, and I think in your position, it is, you're in a professional position. I think I was very upset and angry when I sent that message, and I think the fact that Mark reached out, was willing to go the next step and said, hey, let me email the board, I'm gonna email the board of directors, I'm gonna CC, it made me feel like he was doing something, and that made me feel better.
Understood.
So just for future reference, when it comes to things, I think you go a lot further with sugar than you do with salt.
Understood. And we'll get better
So-
hopefully we won't have to go through this again, but as each one of these situations occur, we do learn from our mistakes, and we will keep getting better at each one of them.
I do have one quick question on this. So if we are spraying as much as we can or whatever, is it a matter of where that's all we do right now? Because the lakes are high, the water is high.
Yes, ma'am,
Even
that's
like
all.
he said, you can spray, you're still like 1 inch kind of situation a day,
Yes, ma'am.
basically.
Yes, ma'am.
So I'd rather see spray than I would see golfers at this point. They can come back in the spring and let's get the water levels down. So if we have another rainstorm, your crowd's going to be about 5 times this size.
Understood.
Because it's not a county issue, it's a golf course issue. And unfortunately, you guys own the golf course, so it's your issue.
Agreed. Thank you so much
Thank
for your
you.
input.
Mike, can I address one thing? And it went to the gentleman, I forgot his name, about Holly by the Sea. So those in Holly by the Sea, everybody heard of the Baskerville-Donovan survey that was done in 2015 that would solve the drainage issues in Holly by the Sea?
60 million?
80 million.
80 million? Yeah.
Back in then, Vince, you know about it, right? Strategic planning. So as you go forward, just keep that in mind. There was a study done, Baskerville-Donovan, the county authorized them to do a study, and it was $60 to $80 million to fix all the Holly by the Seas. We're on a swamp, I'm sorry about that. But just keep that in mind as you move forward. There was a plan, there was a study done, so.
All right.
Can I ask a question?
No, sir, yeah.
Just one question related to what the lady was talking about.
No, we're done for the day, sir.
Well,
All right. Does the board have anything else?
Move
All
to
right.
adjourn.
All right, I have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second?
Second.
Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say no. Meeting adjourned.